What exactly is compression? Compression, put very, very simply, is a volume robot. That is the easiest way to look at compression. It is a little automated device that when things get louder than you want them to get, it turns them down for you. Compression is often very misunderstood by people because it is it's an abstract device. And a lot of times when you read material about compressors online or when you watch other videos about it, people love to go off and, well, it limits the dynamic range of a signal and, yada, yada, like all these very fancy words. But at its purest essence, it is literally just a robot that turns things down for you when they get too loud. This is really useful in mixing and production for a couple of different reasons. The number one and most kind of basic use of compression is to control the volume of a signal. So my favorite example for this is vocals, right? If you have a singer who's singing a really loud chorus, let's say, and then they go into a much quieter verse, we can use compression to turn that chorus down automatically without having to do a bunch of volume automation. And then bring that verse. It doesn't necessarily bring the verse up unless you're using makeup gain, but it will level those two things out so that you have a nice dynamically even signal. The second use of compression is for what we call transient control. Transients are essentially the first initial spiky peaks of sound. So if you think of like a snare drum, for instance, you have the crack, that first initial transient, and then you have the sustain or kind of the body of the sound. And compression also helps us sculpt those things to either make our transients pop more or to control them and turn them down so that the body of the instrument at hand is a little bit more prominent or isn't being outshined by that transient. So what I have on screen right now is M Compressor from Melda Productions. Awesome free plugin. Anybody can get it. And it's just a very good and simple and straightforward compressor. Now, I won't go into all of the controls here, but pretty much every compressor that you ever use will have at least some of these controls. Many of them have all of these controls. Some have fewer, some have even more than this and are even more complicated. But there are some general concepts that you want to have a good command of when it comes to compression. So first thing is you'll usually have an input and an output gain. Obviously, that's just a volume for your signal going into the compressor and then a volume for the signal coming out of the compressor once you have compressed the signal, once the compressor's done its job. Then you have our threshold, you have attack, release, and you have a ratio. These are the most common settings that you'll find on almost all compressors. So what do each of these do? Well, fortunately, we have a very handy little visual reference here, and this will make a lot more sense when I start actually rolling back this drum track that we're working on. But this is basically a visualization of how the compressor is doing what it's doing. So let's go ahead and roll the drums. So you can see we have a nice level kind of meter here that's bouncing around, right, alongside the signal. This red line right here represents our threshold. The threshold is effectively us telling the compressor how loud is too loud, right? So our threshold sets the level at which the compressor starts to take effect. The attack is how quickly we want to start the compressor, how quickly we want to start the attack is how quickly we want the compressor to start turning the sound down once it goes above the threshold. The release is how quickly the compressor should let go once the sound has fallen back below that threshold. And then the ratio is how aggressively we want our volume robot to turn things down once it goes over that threshold. So if we bump our input gain just a little bit here and start playing with this, you can see that as the drums are going by, they're going well above the threshold. And when they do, we have gain reduction. This is how much the little robot is actually turning our compression down. This is all measured in dB, of course, right? Or how much it's turning our drums down, rather. So if we drop the threshold down, we can hear it trying to compress much more aggressively and turn things down much more aggressively. As opposed to here, it's just barely catching just the peaks. Now, if we turn the ratio up, You can see it's being much more aggressive about it. It's turning things down much more aggressively than if we have the ratio a little bit lower, right? Now, the attack and release, again, controls how quickly it's acting. So if we slow our attack way down, you can see that gain reduction meter is going down much more slowly. And because of that, it's also catching less of the signal, right? Because the transients are happening so quickly with a drum kit that if you set a super slow attack, it's not actually really going to do a whole lot of compressing because it's reacting too slowly to really do much of anything. Conversely, the release does exactly the same thing. If we slow our release way down, you can see that gain reduction is hanging on for much longer, as opposed to going away much faster. So using all of these controls together, we can basically sculpt this volume robot. We can program this little volume robot to do a lot of very handy things for us. The most common approach for drums that I like to use especially is a sort of slightly medium or slightly slower attack, and then a very fast release, a moderate ratio, say 4:1, and a relatively low threshold. If we turn the compressor off and then back on, you can hear it's really just leveling out the kit. It's bringing a lot of the body of the kit out, and it's bringing the transients down a little bit, but it's still letting the transients really shine and pop quite nicely. So we still get the nice crack on the snare, we get the nice attack on the kick drum, but it's kind of just leveling everything else out in a really, really nice way. This is opposed to, say, something like a vocal where you might want it to ride a little bit more. So you'd use a very fast attack, a slower release, maybe a slightly lower ratio, and then also a low threshold. That will put it so that your vocal is always above the threshold and the compressor is really nicely controlling the volume of that vocal. It's not being really aggressive and grabby, but it's just riding the vocal and really smoothing it out. Once you get to grips with the controls, you want to really sit there and fine tune what you want your compressor to be doing, because it's a very, very powerful tool, and it's something that you honestly end up using on most channels in your mix. You don't always have to use it, but these days especially, compression is used on pretty much everything.